Hey everybody, this is Gabe Hernandez with Comical Opinions. Wanted to talk about this DC Comics announcement that just came out. Actually, technically speaking, came out yesterday, but it's been making a little bit more of the rounds today about the hiring of Daniel Cherry as the general manager for DC Comics. He's coming from Activision Esports and actually quite a few organizations right before that. But I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about his background, a little bit of his career history, and maybe do a little bit of prognostication what's going to happen probably in the first, I would say, 90 days. Could be longer, could be shorter. We'll see. But before we do that, let's get the usual out of the way. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to Comical Opinions newsletter. I have a link down in the description below. It's completely free. And for everyone who signs up with a subscription, again, 100% completely free. You'll get immediate notification when I do the next newsletter that comes out on a weekly basis. And also in the very near future, I'm planning on building out some perks and interesting benefits for my subscriber base. So if you haven't already, please do click on the link, sign up. It's completely free, and you'll get to see the articles that have already been posted. The most recent one talking about the importance of editors and how they can make or break a comic book. So take a look at that. Let me know what you think. And I very much appreciate your time and your attention if you decide to subscribe. So let's jump right into it. So DC Comics, this is from Hollywood Reporter. DC Comics has announced that esports exec Daniel Cherry has signed on to become their general manager. And that's kind of made a little bit of a shift for Mr. Jim Lee here, who's seen down here in the lower corner of the video of the banner picture. Daniel Cherry, who hails from the world of esports, has been named Senior VP and General Manager of DC Comics. In the newly created position, the executive, who is coming from video game behemoth Activision Blizzard, where he acted as Chief Marketing Officer of its esports division, will head up business affairs, editorial, talent services, that's hiring people, marketing, standard stuff, sales, standard stuff, brand, and direct-to-consumer for DC. Okay, and I want you to hold on to that for a minute. So that's a lot of stuff, but that really falls into a lot of the things that are related to the business, the business presentation to the public, the actual business of building up DC Comics. So you might ask, well, that tells you a little bit about Daniel Cherry coming from Activision Blizzard. Okay, so what is that? If we go over to his LinkedIn page, and I have a LinkedIn account. As a matter of fact, I was one of the not the first, but one of the earliest adopters of LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn ID, if you ever look at it, is it's a very low number because I'm one of the early ones. So, but this is Daniel Cherry's LinkedIn profile, the banner ad. He's got a flag there, fist raised. I think there's some sort of social political implication in that, but I don't want you to take that too seriously because that is not at all indicative of anything other than what he feels is socially relevant. What matters is his CV, which is basically his work history. And oh boy, this is an impressive list. If you go all the way back to the beginning, let's see, he worked for Truth.com, which is the anti-tobacco consortium. He started his advertising Crispin Porter and Boguski. He was co-owner of Frank 151 magazine and the advertising brand consulting division of Frank 151, where he led brand content influence and experiential marketing strategies for Red Bull, Toyota, Nike, Vitamin Water, ride snowboards. Let's see, he had the pleasure of working at Whedon Kennedy, where he led strategy on Nike, the Jordan brand, and ESPN. Let's see. Daniel has served as managing partner and director of brand strategy at Anomaly, working on global brands such as Converse, Umbro, Cole Haan, Budweiser, Motorola. I mean, this guy's made the rounds. To say he is an expert and is highly sought after in the chief marketing officer field, I think is an understatement. Prior to Activision Blizzard, he was also the chief marketing and innovation officer for the 3-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils and Prudential Center Arena. I mean, this is all big corporate stuff. So when it comes to brand development, marketing, innovation for business development, this guy is probably the top of his game. So you couldn't ask for any better. But you might be asking, okay, so what is a chief marketing officer? What does it mean to be in charge of marketing and innovation? So if we hop over to the handy dandy Wikipedia and look a little bit at the chief marketing officer role, the chief marketing officer is responsible for facilitating growth, sales, and marketing strategy, which sounds just in line with the Hollywood Reporter. We also they must work towards objectives such as revenue generation, cost reduction, and risk mitigation. Sounds pretty dry, but it's necessary. The unpredictable effect of marketing efforts coupled with the need to drive profits often leads to a short tenure for most CMOs. Forbes reported that the average CMO tenure in 2008 was just over 28 months. Well, that doesn't sound encouraging, but that's sort of the nature of the game. When you're dealing with ever-changing brands, ever-changing strategies, and without getting too dry and too far into it, what I wanted to point out in this Wikipedia article about the chief marketing officer role is this statement right here. According to a 2011 IBM global study of 1,734 CMOs around the world, CMOs see customer loyalty. I want to pause on that. CMOs see customer loyalty as their top priority in the digital era. When it comes to comics, that means you, me, and everyone who buys a comic book. We are the customer. CMOs, according to the 2011 study, that's not too recent, but it's close enough for government work. CMOs see customer loyalty as their top priority in the digital area. The second priority is to design experiences for tablets and mobile apps, which is where digital comes in, things like Comixology and what have you. Customer loyalty is their top priority. Okay, great. So where does that leave us? So if we look at where Daniel Cherry is coming from, he's coming from a laundry list of big name brands, big name marketing type accounts, and he's coming into DC Comics. And part of his role is direct to consumer for DC. Direct to consumer, that's you and me. We are the consumer. These are the people that buy the comics, the people that spend their money on what DC puts out. So DC is bringing in a heavy hitter who, as a CMO, knows for a while now that the top priority is customer loyalty. And part of his job description with DC is direct to consumer for DC, which is you and me. We are the customers and driving that loyalty going forward. So part of the description, if you look down and you read it in the description of the video, is I think the first 90 days will probably hinge upon an old ICV2 article. Not too old, but coming from 2017. And it's this one right here about a presentation that was done by a data analytics company called NPD. And it was done during the New York City Comic Con for that year, right around October, which is where New York City Comic Con is usually the second weekend in October. In that particular presentation, NPD did a customer demographic survey of comic book buyers. And what they have in this article, and I'm not here at all to debate the legitimacy of the numbers as far as the breakdowns and what that means and what we should or should not be doing. That's sort of not the point. But what they did do is they have an opportunity to kind of look at who buys comics, age ranges, genders, what types of comics they're interested in. And what I thought was also interesting about this article, and it's been around for a while, it's not new, again, 2017, and I'll link it down in the description as well, as they talk about the demographics as far as who buys graphic novels versus who buys manga versus who buys what they term here as superhero buyers, which is basically your traditional the Supermans, the Green Lanterns, the X-Men. These are your superhero buyers and how they skew in the United States. And if you've gone through it, it's not, again, I'm not making any assertions about what the data necessarily means, although it is pretty obvious that when you look at it, it skews, for the superhero comics anyway, skews fairly heavy male, and the racial demographic is pretty consistent with the racial demographic of the United States population. Does that really tell you anything that you can use? I don't know. But the reason I bring this up is because Mr. Cherry, who is a heavy hitter, and I use that term mildly, chief marketing officer, spends, I can guarantee you, an awful lot of time looking at data and making decisions based upon data, based upon information. So if I had to guess at what's going to happen within the next 90 days, and Mr. Cherry starts on September 8th, which is 6 days from today. It was 7 days from the time of the article, but 6 days from today. As of the recording of this video, is he is going to bring all this experiential knowledge to bear. All of these companies, all these brands, all these big name type of counts that I think almost everybody on the planet has heard of at this point, all that experience, he brings it together. And what he's going to want to do is he's going to want to come into DC Comics, and he's going to say the top priority for a CMO or anybody who's in charge of building brands, building organizations, building businesses is customer loyalty. How do we get the customers on board with what we do and how we do it? The first question he's going to ask in that 90 days is, who is our customer? That's where this comes in. He's going to look at this and say, our customer are these people for the different types of products that DC makes, for the different avenues, be it digital, be it graphic novels, for YA, or as the ICV2 article calls it, superhero buyers. He's going to want to look at all that data. And the source of this information actually comes from an NPD survey here that's called, that's also from about roughly the same time period. Comics and graphic novels, one of the highest growth categories in publishing, reports NPD. So I'll link all this stuff down in the description if you're interested in looking at it. It's dry stuff. This is not exciting stuff, but this is where DC has decided that by bringing Daniel Cherry III onto their organization, they want to bring all this to bear. Top priority, customer loyalty. How is he going to do that? First step, he's going to look at data and then start making decisions based upon the data. And then those decisions will drive the innovation of where DC Comics is going to go going forward. Funny enough, I went over to YouTube and I found where Daniel Cherry attended an FEI conference back in 2017. And I've got a little bit of a snippet of that interview, and I've included the link to the full video down in the description as well if you're interested. But I want you to hear his words, and hopefully this comes through on the video. If not, I've got the link down below. But I want you to hear his words, his specific words about innovation and where he thinks what a company needs to do to drive innovation going forward. So I'm going to shut up for a minute and I want you to listen to this very clearly.
To me, innovation is not a department. It's not a title, candidly. And it's also not just a process. I think innovation is cultural based. I think leaders and organizations have to make it safe for failure to occur. And when there's failure, there's learning, there's growth. And when there's accelerated growth, there's innovation. I think innovation drives that. But it has to be done with a culture of learning and candidly a culture of failure. It's allowed in your business model some level of failure. Otherwise, you'll be successful and you won't innovate.
All right, so hopefully the sound came through on the video. I don't know if it did or not, but again, I'll link it down in the description. But basically, the model is set up a corporate environment where it's safe for people to fail. But you can't just fail. You have to fail, and then you have to learn from it. And then to learn from it, then you improve from it. And when you improve from it, then you innovate from it. Failure, learn, improve, innovate. And I thought that was very telling about his mentality and his philosophy. At the time of this recording, this is when he was working for the Jersey Devils, which is the hockey team sourced out of New Jersey. So if I was going to say what's going to happen in the next 90 days, kind of bring it all home, he's going to come into DC Comics starting a week from now. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to look at numbers. Now, these are 2017 numbers. He'll either use these, if I had to make a guess, or prediction, I should say, he's going to use these numbers, or he's going to commission to have an updated version of this report done, possibly by NPD, maybe by somebody else. But he's going to say he wants to know who are our DC Comics customers, how do we get them loyal to the DC brand, because a lot of that's fallen off in past years. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody, and he's going to want to win that back, and he wants to know how to do it. That means a tightening up of the lines. That's going to be redoing the title strategies, the lineups, how the comics are delivered. He's going to look at all the processes, and that, you know, if we're talking about efficiency and innovation, that's definitely going to hit where they've had problems, especially with Diamond, even though they've sort of moved on from the Diamond at this point. And then you're going to see probably, I would say, first, second quarter of 2021, it's going to take about that long for him to kind of get settled into position, get a better understanding of where DC sits in the market and how they can leverage that information to reestablish that number one priority, which is customer loyalty. And if he tackles that, which with as much aggression and gusto and innovation as he's touting in his LinkedIn CV and also in his interviews, 2021 is going to be a very potentially exciting. I would say this is going to be a very exciting period for DC Comics coming out of the pandemic. The bloodbath, the quote unquote bloodbath from a few weeks back, had everybody all up in arms thinking that DC Comics was not long for this world. I think with this hire of Daniel Cherry III, if DC Comics just sort of lets him come in and do what he needs to do, and from all accounts knows how to do very well, the beginning of I would say first, maybe second quarter of 2021 is going to be a very interesting, very innovative, and I think that's going to be the key word, innovative and exciting period for DC Comics. And if he holds true to that whole edict of top priority being customer loyalty, that means the focus of everything that DC Comics is doing is going to be shifting towards the customer, which is you and me. And now it's my prediction, and it's also my opinion. I could be right. I could be wrong. We'll find out. But what do you think? Let me know. Comment down below at the bottom of right below the video. Comments are open. Like, share, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you think this is kind of an interesting bit of information to help you get a better insight into what's going on. Or you think of completely off base and this is just going to be another high-paid executive that may or may not do anything good and DC is just doomed no matter what they do. Let me know. And if you think I'm off my rocker, give me that thumbs down. Let me know about it. So again, thank you for your time. Don't forget, again, the link down is in the description. Please subscribe to Comical Opinions. You'll get notified right away for the newsletter when it comes out on a weekly basis. And I've got special things coming up for everybody who does subscribe. Read my latest newsletter talking about the importance of editors in the comic making process. Hopefully this has been interesting. I thank you for your time. This is Gabriel Hernandez from Comical Opinions, and you have a great day.